We will talk about Ukraine's growing concerns about a sharp decline in ammunition supplies. When Putin launched his invasion of Ukraine on February 24, 2022, his goal was to launch a swift campaign, during which on the first day he deployed a massive military force of about 150,000 troops. Their best to ensure that they truly are the best. Putin only recruits experienced soldiers with high salaries, in some cases nearly 10 times the normal salary paid in the Russian military. Furthermore, Putin shot down ballistic and cruise missiles and destroyed most of Ukraine's main command and communication centers in the early days of the invasion. This huge attack force, coming from the north, northeast, east, and south, advancing rapidly on all fronts due to the destruction of the nerve centers of the Ukrainian army chain, devastated the Ukrainian units. Many of those units were surrounded and destroyed during the first few days. This was enough for Putin and his staff to put an end to the desire of Ukrainians to defend themselves, which would lead to the army simply laying down its arms. By launching a major attack directly on Kiev, Putin also believes that Zelensky, his government and his team will eventually leave the capital and seek refuge abroad, possibly in Poland, opening up path to power for pro-Russian politicians. Willingly agree to Moscow's demands. Finally, Putin believes that the West in February 2023 will do the same thing as February 2014, refraining from issuing a note refusing to invade and annex Crimea. However, as history shows, not all of Putin's predictions come true. Russia's powerful attack did not destroy the Ukrainian army's will to defend. Zelensky did not leave Kiev, and the West, represented by the United States, NATO, and other important partners such as Australia and Japan, did not limit itself to issuing negative notes, but also initiated a press operation, offered financial and military support to Ukraine, just as the United States did in the early years of World War II under the Lend-Lease Act. All of this radically transformed the conflict, resulting in a very long and grueling war for both sides, marked by a series of advances and retreats, leading to almost complete stagnation of the front line in November 2023, when Ukraine and Russia were unable to penetrate enemy lines. In a friction-based conflict without mass movement, artillery plays an even more important role. In short, whichever side fires more artillery shells will neutralize the enemy more, making it more difficult to concentrate forces and conduct major attacks. In the type of conflict we are witnessing in Ukraine, the number of artillery shells is the main and potentially decisive factor influencing the outcome of the fighting. The problem for Ukraine in this case is that Russia has the world's largest stockpile of artillery shells, allowing the Russians to fire an impressive amount of up to 40,000 artillery shells per day during the first months of the invasion, a volume of artillery fire unprecedented since the Great Patriotic War. Ukraine has tried to maintain the artillery firing rate at only 10 to 15% of this figure. In other words, in the first months of Russia's invasion, for every 10 Russian artillery shots, Ukraine responded with 1 shot. As the conflict raged for months, the rate of artillery fire in Russia decreased and in Ukraine increased, reaching the current average rate of fire of 3-to-1 by November 2023. As a result, for every 3 Russian artillery shells, Ukraine responded with 1, an effort that almost depleted Ukraine's artillery reserves, making Ukraine almost completely dependent on its Western allies in the war. Area. Because many current NATO members were once members of the Warsaw Pact, many countries such as Poland, Romania, and the Baltic states have large stockpiles of ammunition compatible with Soviet and Russian artillery used by Ukraine, and most of these stockpiles have been used up, handed over to the Ukrainians. However, Ukraine does not have a Western artillery inventory that meets NATO standards, especially 155mm caliber, and the maintenance of these artillery guns is completely dependent on supplies from allies. Ukraine's problem is that NATO has slowed the production of artillery shells for years, but at the start of the Russian invasion in February 2022, the United States produced in 1 month what Russia fired at Ukraine in 1 month. This has led to a significant increase in ammunition production. The U.S. has doubled production and promised to increase it 5-fold by 2025, and the same is happening in Europe. The European Commission announced a €3 billion package earlier this year to boost domestic artillery shell production. At the beginning of the year, Europe pledged to send 1 million artillery shells to Ukraine before March 2024. However, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius has said that this level will not be reached. The dwindling supply of ammunition is a major concern for Ukraine. On November 16, President Zelensky said that Ukraine's warehouses were empty and supplies had actually decreased, and urgently requested more ammunition. Some of Ukraine's allies, such as the US and Germany, have also expressed concern, saying they have recently had difficulty procuring ammunition, possibly referring to the conflict in Gaza, where the Israelis also need Western ammunition. A few weeks ago, President Biden announced his intention to approve a $35 billion aid package for Ukraine. However, this aid must pass through the National Assembly and the Senate, where many politicians are increasingly less willing to approve billions of dollars in aid, deepening Zelensky's concerns. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please subscribe now and turn on the bell so you don't miss any updates.